honesty and love, and James Baldwin's search for a place called home. So while I will talk about religion, I'm also, and that probably relates to my social worker field, I'm interested in the man behind the literature, the writer, James Baldwin. And so looking at a few of his narratives, I am going to talk about kind of how those parallel his own search for a place of belonging, a place to call home. So let me pull that up. James Baldwin's writings provide insight into not only his call for justice, but his personal search for a place to call home. This paper will argue that Baldwin's transatlantic migration from Harlem to Paris is a physical metaphor for his personal search for a place to call home, a place where his full identity as a gay black man can be affirmed and celebrated. Through an analysis of Baldwin's use of socio-religious and romantic themes in his literary imagination, I will seek to show the relationship between Baldwin's geographical location and his discursive location at various points in time. I will demonstrate how Baldwin's critique of racism in American society functions as an intellectual quest for freedom and a home. Next, I will explore the ambivalent relationship between Baldwin and the African American church, illustrating how his experiences in Harlem instigated his cry for a safe place to belong. And lastly, I will seek to show how Baldwin's life while in Paris was instrumental in Baldwin's construction of home and thus his own personal development of self-identity. The relationship between James Baldwin's writings and his personal life is essential to understanding both the importance and connection between Baldwin's notion of home and the construction of his self-identity. In Giovanni's Room, Baldwin writes that perhaps home is not a place, but simply an irrevocable condition, suggesting that home is more than just a tangible building or a consistent adjective of location. I would like to suggest that home can be defined as a place not constricted by physical boundaries, but a place created through one's imagination, a notion or condition which remains even when the geographical location of home has changed. Home is an unaltered condition which enables us to return to a place of homeostasis in an inconsistent world. It provides us with a place of refuge where we can fully be loved and learn to love others. Home, as demonstrated through Baldwin's geographical and discursive movements, is a state of being in spite of the materiality of racism, sexism, genderism, and all other forms of oppression and exclusion. It allows for one to not only find peace in a chaotic world, but peace within oneself. Called by many as a prophet, James Baldwin's use of the literary imagination served as a vehicle by which the social ills of American society could be placed on the public stage of accountability. While using his own life experiences as the catalyst for this critique, James Baldwin's own illegitimate birth, search for an ideal father, and desire for a love that transcends racial and gender lines parallels the stories found in The Fire Next Time, Go Tell It on the Mountain, and even If Beale Street Could Talk. Through the use of the narrative, Baldwin writes his own journey towards self-love, identity, and the construction of home, while simultaneously speaking to the experiences shared by so many others who could relate to Baldwin on a personal level. This prophet stood as a messenger for the communal sins that were being committed by the American society as a whole, while doing the same dance of self-doubt, questioning that was often performed by prophets in the biblical context. Baldwin's burden of being born to save others through the word was a burden that he would also have to apply to himself. Baldwin's The Fire Next Time parallels his own personal struggle with the nation in which he is supposed to pledge allegiance to, a nation which he is supposed to call home, but is yet still treated as an unwanted foreigner. In the chapter My Dungeon Shook, Baldwin explains the environment in which his nephew and black people all over America found themselves, in an intentionally created ghetto made to ensure his belief of every lie of inferiority was upheld by white society and thus ultimately would lead to his demise. The physical creation and presence of this ghetto, especially made for black people, stands in stark contrast to the notion of home presented by Baldwin, which I previously mentioned. This ghetto that many blacks may have called home would not provide Baldwin with the elements needed to construct his idea of what home truly is, a condition which provides a humanizing affirmation of black people in all of their complexities. Home as an irrevocable condition, a mental reality untouched by the physical properties realities of reality proves to be that much more critical. Life and survival must be tied to a notion of home that transcends the destructive boundaries found in the physical world that many blacks reside in. Baldwin admonishes his nephew to see himself as he is, descending from a long line of sturdy, strong, powerful, determined, creatively unparalleled black men, to cease fleeing from reality and begin to change it through the power of love. Home is where the heart is. For black people, home cannot be found in the confines of the ghetto. It must be sought after in the chambers of the heart where love resides and love of self flourishes. Baldwin's critique of a racially unjust society supports his personal quest for a place to belong. Writing about his experiences with the police at the tender ages of 10 and 13, Baldwin describes the humiliation and dehumanization leveled against black people of all ages and socioeconomic classes simply for being black. The overwhelming terror and fear felt by many blacks was a feeling that developed as soon as black children became aware of themselves and their surroundings, and oftentimes was a feeling that remained. Education was not enough because Baldwin knew a number of college-graduated handymen. A large bank account was insufficient because the social treatment of even these successful black people proved that money was not enough. The police would violently abuse black people because they could get away with it. And your common white housewives, lawyers, judges, and grocery owners would also participate through their own modes of inflicting similar abuse. This land of the free, this society built upon the backs of blacks, robbed blacks of their right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, while pocketing the profits gained from this act of theft, an act which continues even today. Written during the wake of the Civil Rights Movement and following his time spent in Paris, Baldwin provides a clear view into the black experience and the hypocrisy that lied within the American dream. However, it wasn't until he was able to leave the U.S. when he was able to write about his personal and racial background. Baldwin's migration within the U.S. and his transmigration to Paris provided him with the space necessary to reflect on his own personal experiences as a black man in America. Prompted by writing opportunities to leave the U.S., it is also the art of writing which allows for Baldwin to not only see where he came from clearly, but begin the development of a notion of home where his full humanity, his African roots, his homosexual desires, and his illegitimate history could be dealt with all together. Others fled to other states and cities, that is, to other ghettos. Some went on wine or whiskey or the needle and are still on it. And others, like me, fled into the church from the fireman's time. Recognizing the relationship that existed between his own illegitimate beginnings and the illegitimacy attached to his race within the American nation, Baldwin moves to the black church as a way to escape the racism experienced on a daily basis. At the age of 14, Baldwin becomes a minister in the Pentecostal church. Following in the footsteps of his stepfather, Baldwin's religious experience provided him with a temporary sense of power and relief. In his literary work, Go Tell It on the Mountain, Baldwin gives an account of him grappling with his relationship with his stepfather, who Baldwin describes as having died, defeated by believing all of the lies white people said about him. Baldwin's stressed relationship with the only father he knew, and the inability for Baldwin to ever receive the love he required, further supports Baldwin's search for a place to call home. However, Baldwin's realization of Christianity being a white religion void of love leads Baldwin to soon leave the black church, again in search of a place to which he could escape. This coming-of-age story, which climaxes on the threshing floor of a church, parallels Baldwin's own personal story of awakening. The threshing floor in Baldwin's writing would symbolize Baldwin's future life trajectory of weeding through personal and societal pain in order to gain a better understanding of self. An understanding that included an adolescent sexual awakening and guilt. An understanding that, similar to Baldwin's relationship with his stepfather, would not be fully accepted and loved by the black church. The black church, again, serving as a physical location, a refuge for many blacks, does not provide the home in which Baldwin is in search of. However, it is through Baldwin's literary work and the fiction character of John Grimes that we are able to see Baldwin gaining the ability to create his notion or condition of home. In conclusion, through I wanted to touch one more. Could we just pause there and then we run to the, what's that? The right, yes.
What is it you wanted me to reconcile myself to? I was born here almost 60 years ago. I'm not going to live another 60 years. You always told me it takes time. You're taking my father's time, my mother's time, my uncle's time, my brother's and my sister's time, my nieces and my nephew's time. How much time do you want for your progress? What is it you wanted me to reconcile myself to? I was born here almost 60 years ago. I'm not going to live another 60 years. You always told me it takes time. You're taking my father's time, my mother's time, my uncle's time, my brother's and my sister's time, my nieces and my nephew's time. How much time do you want for your progress? What is it you wanted me to reconcile myself to? I was born here almost 60 years ago. I'm not going to live another 60 years. You always told me it takes time.
In conclusion, through Baldwin's literary critique of the African American church, racial injustice and binaries of love, readers are able to accompany James Baldwin alongside his own personal journey of identity formation. Through Baldwin's beautifully crafted words of authenticity, readers are able to tap into the vulnerable places of Baldwin's life by being given a place at the table of shared experiences of oppression and exclusion, desires for love and acceptance, and hope for a future. And through his writing, we are able to see that Baldwin is able to move towards creating a different notion of home, not one that is predicated upon a physical location, but a one that is created through memories, through experiences, through desires and passions, and thus he is able to create his own place called home.
Very good.
Very good presentations. I think all our presentations are going to touch on something very similar. So I'm approaching Baldwin from another perspective, which